Welcome to day 136 of 66 and 26. We're back in the book of Job today. In fact, this is the last day of the book of Job. We're finishing off with the last 4 chapters of Job, and we see God speaking to Job even after Job has suffered terribly, after he has cried out in anguish to the Lord and recognized that it is the Lord who has brought all the devastation upon him. It wasn't for judgment upon him, wasn't punishment, but simply out of God's greater wisdom and understanding. Job can't understand it, and he cries out to the Lord, and God answers, and he says, "Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Where were you when I created the great beasts of the field and all the fish of the sea? And where were you when I created lightning and snow and stored those away in heavenly places?" And so we're reading more of that today in God's response. And it's very interesting. You come up to Job chapter 40 and 41, and God is describing some of the great creatures that he has created, like the horses who are ready to go into battle and even sniff out the battle and are unafraid of charging forward. And then he gets to an interesting creature that is named Behemoth. Behemoth, one that eats grass like an ox, has strength in its loins, power in the muscles of its belly. And there's a little footnote. My Bible has a footnote, and at the bottom it says, possibly the hippopotamus or the elephant. And that's great. Those are big animals and certainly beyond our control or our strength. But then this other verse, it's Job 40 verse 17, his tail, that's Behemoth's tail, sways like a cedar tree. And if you've ever seen a hippopotamus or an elephant tail, it doesn't exactly look like a cedar. It's very small. But there are other creatures. We don't typically think of them as living at the same time as humans, and that would be dinosaurs. And perhaps there's at least the legend of, if not at the time of Job, certainly the remembrance of human beings living with dinosaurs on the earth. And Behemoth sounds an awful lot like a Brachiosaurus, which is, if you think about Jurassic Park, the movie, when they come out on the field and they're these giant, long-necked creatures, those are brachiosaurs, and Behemoth may have been something like that. You get into chapter 41, and God mentions Leviathan. And my footnote says, well, this is possibly the crocodile. But the description of the Leviathan is so much greater than what we imagine a crocodile being. And so maybe there's this sea creature that was still alive, now extinct, but still alive in the ancient world at the time of Job, or Job's ancestors, that still talked about this great creature. Either way, these are created creatures that God made that are more powerful than we can imagine, and we certainly can't tame them, we can't control them, and they are more powerful than we are. And God is saying he is the one who controls all of those animals, all those creatures. It's not man. And so it puts man in our proper place, understanding that we are not God. God is God, and we are not. And so Job comes to this realization by the time we get to the last chapter of Job, Job 42, and we hear Job repenting and confessing, I don't have the understanding that I thought I had, and God, you are so much greater than I am that I can't even begin to imagine. And God blesses Job for that understanding, not because he's been faithful, not because he has been that he's been always done everything right and he's perfect. That's not why God blesses him. God blesses the fact that Job has recognized his smallness in comparison to God and repented of his sin and come before the Lord as his only hope and strength. And God more than abundantly makes up for the losses that Job had experienced in life, and gives more sons and daughters. And to the 4th generation, Job lives to see his grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren, and his wealth and health is restored as well. And so that's how we wrap up the book of Job. And so we end another book on this journey to read all 66 books of the Bible in 2026.